Well, for more analysis on what this could mean for both the protest movement and the government, we can cross to Stockholm and speak with Rusbe Parsi, the head of the Middle East and North Africa program at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Rusbe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The morality police in Iran are not very popular. What will their removal change in the daily lives of Iranian women?
Well, first of all, we have to be cautious about what this signal means. We are still yet to find out whether the signal means an institutional change or a change of practice. And we don't know what the interior minister will say about this. So it's still a signal. We will see whether it becomes something much more concrete. Of course, if it were to become reality, as in the morality police being removed from the streets or being abolished as an institution, that would be a huge win for the protesters and for Iran's women, because they would then be allowed to decide themselves whether they want to wear the headscarf or not.
Now, as you were mentioning there, is this decision really a victory for the protesters, or is this just a political ploy to calm those protests?
Well, if they were meant as a political ploy, which is very difficult at this point to ascertain, it's not going to succeed, obviously. Because the protests have shown that Iranian society as a whole is far beyond being happy with or content with those kind of signals or symbolic gestures. So it will have to be followed up with something concrete if it is going to have an actual effect. The question is how far the state is willing to go in compromising.
Now, we heard that the Iranian regime is possibly thinking of ending the mandatory headscarf requirement. How likely do you think that is?
Well, an outright removal of the statutes, so to speak, that make this mandatory, that I think is a bit into the future, if at all, because that, of course, is a huge change. I think what they will at least try to do is to bargain their way away from that by simply saying the practice will change, that whatever is on the statutes will not be enforced. And that will be their way of trying to hedge and basically, on the one hand, try and be conciliatory towards the protesters, and at the same time towards the more conservative elements within the state elite and society say, it hasn't been removed. If necessary, we will return to enforcing it. But for the moment, it is simply not doable.
And we've also heard that there's plans for a strike starting on Monday. The demonstrators are calling for a 3-day strike and a rally. What do you think? How do you think the government is going to react to that?
Well, I would imagine, as usual, the government is going to try and strike down on that and stop people from being able to amass that kind of people on the streets and that kind of effect on societal functions. These ideas of general strikes have been flagged before. They have not yet managed to get that kind of critical mass where they would have an outright effect. They might symbolically be important, but we will see on Monday then whether they can come into effect.
Thanks so much for that, Rusbe. That's Rusbe Parsi, the head of the MENA program at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs.